What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with data points for this upcoming week, regrettably, because of the whole shutdown, a lot of key labor data is still going to be paused. So we are kind of at the mercy of Fed speakers. There's a massive amount of Fed speakers almost every single day, at least 4. So that in among itself could cause some volatility. We also do have yours truly, Powell, on Tuesday, so that should be a fun time. That one is at 11:20. Aside from that, though, it's going to be companies unveiling their earnings. So we are pretty much at the mercy of Fed speakers and companies hitting home run earnings in order to really push the sentiment a little bit higher. Luckily enough, between China and the States, nothing's really escalated over the weekend. If anything, people kind of realized that might have been a little bit of an overreaction because initially Trump mentioned that he was going to slap China with 100% tariffs, as well as going to be canceling the meeting this upcoming week. But turns out that second part about canceling the meeting wasn't accurate, and I even listened to the video, and so yeah, I think in general there might be a little bit of a possible correction going into this upcoming week, but still the fear is very much there. And as what I even mentioned on Friday, how Lucid was doing rather well considering kind of the scenario and what that means for magnets. Interestingly enough, you do see some people starting to catch on to that. So for instance, 𝗪𝗧𝗧𝗛𝗧 posted how China owns the magnets that runs the world. And yeah, again, this could really impact Lucid because in Q2, that's where the big issue was, and it was magnets. Mark mentioned that they found a temporary fix. I don't really understand where they kind of came to that fix and solution. I always just mentioned that Harry Potter came to work for Lucid and fixed all their problems magically, because I don't understand how a CEO can just say, hey, we fixed something without giving any explanation whatsoever. But nonetheless, if China and the States over this week, things do kind of escalate, tensions rise, anticipate Lucid to get hit very hard, as well as the broader market. The market would kind of sell off quite significantly. But again, that's going to be a very hot topic for this week. As far as specific to Lucid, what they have planned, nothing overly crazy. So the same pop-ups. So it looks like they will be pretty much still in Roseville, Electrify Expo. That's going to be starting on the 18th. And then everything else is in November. So nothing really planned specific to Lucid. Going into this upcoming week, 30.9% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 39.2 million shares overall being shorted. Cost to borrow average, 15.08%. So it has been kind of in line with how it's been for the last week and a half. But the fact that shorts only did increase about 20,000 shares on Friday goes to show that the pullback on Friday wasn't justified. At the same time, a lot of my videos I've been putting out over the weekend, I've been really bringing up that how algorithmic trading was the primary culprit on why the market went down. So you can even see from the flow in Lucid's case as well, that algos really did push Lucid lower. So again, that kind of shows that it was artificially done. And this is why every single video I go over where volume comes from, because it makes a big deal. Algorithmic trading is rather hollow because as soon as they turn off the algos, it's gone. So essentially you could see a nice opportunity for a nice recovery. But again, everything that I mentioned, Fed speakers, companies unveiling the earnings, and just the whole tensions between the States and China, that is going to be really what moves the market and prompts buying. So again, just keep that in mind. From a bull standpoint, from the options, you see a consensus for it to be kind of above that 22, and then the bears are anticipating for it to be sub 20. So more push a little bit lower from that. And the frequency is more oriented towards the downside, with it closing at that 2098, right below that 21. So that does mean that 2050 and below strike prices are in the money, and you see absolutely nothing. 136,000 in the money at that 2050, and then 91,000 at that 20. This upcoming week is a monthly chain, so it is a little bit more active, but still, if Lucid stays anywhere remotely where it is, don't anticipate any gamma squeeze or anything like that. With it at 20.98, it is trading between these 2 points. So this S or the pivot and this S1, 17.65 is going to be a strong support. 21.19 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. So I'm looking at the 1-day chart. So these are very strong kind of support and resistance points. If you're wanting to day trade, it is below pretty much all the key fib levels that I like to look at. You can kind of refer to the classics. So 20.33 will be a strong support, and then 22.32 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. That's if you're more of a day trader, swing trader. So if you're wanting to dollar cost average, take that into consideration. But Friday, it did, for the first time since it looks like, where was it? Right over September the 23rd. So Friday, we did close below that 50-day moving average. So as I've always stated, you need 2 consecutive days to really signal a trend. So for instance, on Monday, if it does as well close below that 50, then historically speaking, we could see a little bit more of a pull lower. So typically about 20 to 30%. So that might cause some kind of disruption within Lucid, but even looking right here, you can kind of see that there's not really that much willing buyers. So you have a couple of strong walls up to pretty much that 20.50, but if that does break, then you could see things really just break down. And it is unfortunate because even looking under this market position right here, as Lucid was heating up, there was no willing sellers. Lucid could have easily, this is what really frustrates me about Lucid. And I get it. I don't know why, just their management, to me at least, seems arrogant. They don't put out any news. Seems like they don't want to help shareholders. And that's probably why, to be fully honest, why they recently did pivot and they just said, hey, we don't want retail. We want to stick to more institutional investors. They didn't use that wording, but that's kind of how everyone interpreted it. So I think in general, they just don't want to give news. They don't want to give updates. They just want to do the quarterly updates and the necessary PR, and that's it. And that's what institutions care about, right? Retail investors need a little bit more updates, because if Lucid, while it was running up here, when it was gaining some good momentum, if they would put out any news of substance, you could easily see things would have went up like crazy, but they missed their opportunity. I feel like that's a very common thing in Lucid, is that they miss opportunities. So as of right now, going into this week, you see a lot of willing sellers. Potentially if Lucid, or let's say the market does recover, you see strong sellers up to about that $22 range. So there's a little bit of a gap here, but still it comes down to Lucid needs to put something out. I think generally Lucid got to a crazy discount after the whole reverse stock split sell-off right here. And so they didn't really put out anything of substance, in my opinion. So a lot of this was just very speculative in nature. A lot of institutions just really pushing it higher. At the same time, you also did have good algorithmic trading really pushing Lucid kind of higher as well. So I think going into this upcoming week, you really want to watch for it to close above that 50-day moving average, ideally tomorrow. But as I mentioned, it's going to come down to the data. So ultimately, quickly going back over here, I do feel, given the circumstances for this week, that we will be more so towards this S1. So I do feel like we will actually be breaking below that $20 range. We'll be seeing a lot of volatility, so most likely this pivot point will be touched. But at the same time, I do feel just both the States and China are very hard-headed. They're not going to come to some agreement overnight. So I feel like that level of fear is going to just loom over the broader market and potentially cause a little bit more of an additional pullback, right? Because at the same time, you have Ray Dalio and also you have Jay Powell pretty much saying the exact same thing, that things are just way too high and kind of due for a pullback. Powell didn't say that, due for a pullback, but I think you just have that certain mentality now that everything is just overvalued. So that's just my opinion. What do I know in life? So let me know your general thoughts on that in the comments below. Where do you see things going? So like I said, I do feel that we'll be kind of between this range, so this pivot and this S1. Not enough to break below that 1765, but it might be kind of between there and that $20 range. So where do you see things going, and what do you think the next big catalyst for Lucid will be? Do you think that they have something in their back pocket for, let's say, a partnership or something else? What's your kind of general thoughts? And I did put out a post on this YouTube channel just to gauge people's viewpoint on kind of the content I create. So of course, this is just a dedicated Lucid channel, but clearly based on the views, people aren't really looking at Lucid content as much as they once were, which I get it. Right now, Lucid hasn't put out any news, so it's just more technical driven, and that's not what people really care about. So I am kind of getting your gauging your guys' viewpoint. Would you want me to cover other EVs as well, such as, let's say, Tesla, Rivian, even though I'm not really that big of a fan of Rivian, but Tesla, Rivian, other EVs as well. So if you are interested, let me know. Or generally, I can just do more stat-driven type of EV type of news. So if that floats your boat, let me know in the comments below. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you are looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.